Hey, what's up, everybody? Good to be back with you again. We got the Tigers at the Naps. Yeah, Detroit still is there in fifth place here. 3 games won in a row. Cleveland has fallen all the way back to last place. And if they lose this game as well, it might not be long for us to watch them here in the future. Germany Schaefer up here first for Detroit, and he rolls a 55 for an 8, and that's going to be a ground ball over to the shortstop pairing. Makes the play, throws over to first for the out, one away. Matty McIntyre now. He'll roll a 65 for a 35. That's going to be a little foul out over to Bradley, the third baseman, for the second. And here is Ty Cobb. Cobb rolls a 62 for a 12. That is a ground ball over to Rossman. The first baseman does it himself. We go to the bottom of the first. Here's Josh Clark. Clark rolls a 15 for an 11. That's a single, and then a stolen base right away for him. And here comes Napoleon, the one who is supposed to be the player who gets it done here for Cleveland, but hasn't done it much this season. He rolls a 14 for a 43, and here is the little E. Little E roll comes along 55, so that's going to be a little fly ball over to left field, and it is McIntyre who has that for the first out. Here is George Stovall. George rolls a 31 for an 8. That's a little comebacker over to Donovan. He makes the play, throws over to first for the out, 2 away, and here's Clark. Josh Clark rolls a 31 for a 9, and that's going to be a single that will score the runner, and then he is thrown out trying to advance to second base after that. We go to the top of the second inning, and the Naps are on top 1-0, and here come the Tigers. It's Bosch Schmidt up there, the catcher, rolls a 65 for a 35. That's a pop-up over to Bradley, the third baseman, 1 out, and here's Sam Crawford. He rolls a 56 for a 34. And the little E roll is a 34. That's out of the range. That's going to be a pop-up over to the shortstop pairing for the second out. Here is Claude Rossman. Claude rolls a 34 for a 44. That's going to be a fly ball over to center field. It's Birmingham who has that for the out. We go to the bottom of the second inning, and it'll be Bill Bradley. Bill up there rolls a 22 for an 8. That's a ground ball over to shortstop Schaefer. Makes the play, throws to first for the out, 1 away. George Pairing now rolls a 15 for a 10, and he gets his base hit. So hit number 3 for the Naps, who are getting all the hits in this one to spite me, I suppose. That'll bring up Joe Birmingham. Joe rolls a 32 for a 26 as a ground ball over to the second baseman down, flips over to Schaefer, the shortstop, covering at the bag for the force out at second. Birmingham able to reach first, and there's 2 away here for Bill Hinchman. And Hinchman rolls a 32 for a 26. That's the ground ball, this time over to the second baseman down, slips it over to Schaefer, so they do it the other way. We'll go to the top of the third inning, still 1-0 for Cleveland. Coughlin up there. Bill Coughlin rolls a 32 for a 26. That's a ground ball over to Napoleon. Throws to first for the out, 1 away. Red Downs now rolls a 41 for a 28. Another ground ball, this time to second or short, and it's Pairing who has it. Throws over to first for the out, 2 away. Here is Donovan, who rolls a 66 for a 0, and his second roll is a 62 for an 11. So that's going to be a single and then a stolen base for the pitcher. That'll bring up Schaefer, Germany Schaefer up here again with a runner on second base. And we're going to have to re-roll that one that was caught between, and it's a 54 for a 45. That's a fly ball over to center field. Birmingham has that for the out. We go to the bottom of the third. It'll be Bob Rhodes here to lead off the bottom of the third for Cleveland. He rolls a 25 for a 9, and that's a single over short. And there's a runner on for Josh Clark, and he rolls now a 51 for a 9, and that'll be a single advancing Rhodes over to second, and that brings up LeJoie. Runners on at first and second, nobody out, and he's got a chance here to really blow something up, hitting only 226 this season, and his roll is a 63 for a 31. That's a little fly ball over to Crawford in center. That's not getting it done. 1 away. George Stovall now the batter, and he rolls a 31 for an 8. That's a little ground ball over to third base. Coughlin has it, throws to first for the out, 2 away. Here comes Jay Clark again. And Clark rolls a 26 for a 29. That's a comebacker over to Donovan. He throws over to first for the out. We go to the top of the fourth. Matty McIntyre. McIntyre rolls a 55 for an 8. That's a ground ball over to Pairing, who has it, throws to first for the out, 1 away. That brings up Ty Cobb, hitting only 245. 1 home run, by the way, kind of odd. He rolls a 26 for a 13, and down he goes, 2 away for Schmidt. And he rolls a 61 for a 38, changed to a 39. That's a strike. Next roll is a 31 for a 9, and that's a base hit. Hit number 2 for the Tigers here, top of the fourth, and that'll bring up Sam Crawford. Sam rolls a 34 for a 44. It's a fly ball over to Birmingham in center for the out. We go to the bottom of the fourth. I probably should have had the runner running. Bill Bradley rolls a 13 for a 14, and there's a walk, 1 on for George Pairing now. And Pairing rolls a 35 for a 13 and will strike out, 1 away for Joe Birmingham. Birmingham up there rolls a 16 for a 28. There's a ground ball over to Schaefer at short, makes the play, throws to first for the out, 2 away as Bradley moves up, and it's Bill Hinchman who rolls a 21 for a 30. That's a fly ball over to left field. McIntyre has it for the out. We go to the top of the fifth. It's going to be Claude Rossman. Rossman rolls a 45 for a 14, and there's a walk, and that will put a runner on here for Bill Coughlin as we look up Rossman quickly. And I think we're going to bunt. I think that's going to be the answer here for Detroit. And its a roll is a 61 for a 32. That's a bunt over to Bradley on the left side. He makes the play, throws over to first for the out as Rossman moves up to second. One away now for Red Downs, and I suppose we'll let him swing away. And good thing we did. He rolls a 33 for a 7. That's a single to right field, and that will score the runner, and that's a tie game 1-1. That'll bring up Donovan. And Bill up there rolls a 24 for a 13 and a strikeout, 2 away. Here's Germany Schaefer. Schaefer rolls a 45 for a 14, and he takes his base on the walk. Just a second. Hey there, sorry about that. We have Matty McIntyre up there now, and there's some gunk in the air that's causing me to not be able to breathe. Here's McIntyre, and he rolls a 65 for a 35, and that's going to cause a little E roll. And it's a 21, which is within the range. That's going to change to 19. That will be an error on the third baseman, Bradley, and that loads the bases here for Ty Cobb. And boy, if there ever was a time for Cobb to get out of his hitting slump, this would be it. See what he can do, and he rolls a 35 for an 8, and unfortunately against the C, that's a strikeout, and sends us to the bottom of the 5th inning. So up is Bob Rhodes, bottom of the 5th inning, 1-1 ball game. Rhodes rolls a 25 for a 9, and that's a pop fly over to third baseman Coughlin, who has it for the out, 1 away. That'll bring up Josh Clark, who rolls a 34 for a 44, and here is that little E roll again. It's a 64 out of the range. Fly ball over to center field, and it's going to be Crawford who has that 1-2 away, and here is Napoleon, who rolls a 25 for an 8, gets his single to left center field, and that'll bring up George Stovall. Stovall rolls a 54 for a 45. That's a little fly ball over to center field. Crawford has it for the out. We go to the top of the 6th. It's going to be Bosch Schmidt up there in the 6th, and he rolls a 24 for a 13. Another strikeout, 4 so far today for Bob Rhodes. 1 away for Sam Crawford. And Crawford rolls a 32 for a 26. That's a ground ball over to Napoleon at second base. Throws to first for the out, 2 away. And here is Rossman. He rolls a 64 for a 13 and strikes out. And so we go to the bottom of the 6th. It's going to be Jay Clark, and he rolls a 12 for a 25. There is a little E roll here. Let's see what happens. And it's a 34 out of the range. It's a little ground ball then over to second base. It'll be down. So he makes the play, throws to first for the out, 1 away. Bill Bradley up there now, and he rolls a 35 for a 42, gets hit by the pitch and takes his base. With 1 out, here is George Perring, and it's time to bunt again. Perring rolls a 25 for a 9, and that ends up being a bunt over to the left side. Coughlin has it, throws over to the second baseman. Downs covering it first. That will move Bradley up to second as the sacrifice is successful. 2 down, and it's Joe Birmingham. Birmingham rolls a 51 for a 9, and that's a little ground ball over to first base. Rossman has it, does it himself to the bag. We go to the top of the 7th inning. And up first, Bill Coughlin rolls an 11 for a 7, and that's a base hit. And this has frozen my game, and now it's come back. And with 1 down, here is Red Downs, who's going to bunt, of course. So we try to get this runner into scoring position. And he rolls an 11 for a 0. Maybe I shouldn't have had him bunt. It's so hard to tell. Next is a 64 for a 6. That'll be a bunt over to the left side. It's the third baseman, Bradley, who makes the play, throws over to Napoleon covering at the bag. That brings up Wild Bill Donovan. And I think we'll have him swing away. And it was a good thing we did. You see that? He rolls a 66 for a 0. The next roll is a 15 for a 6, and that's going to be a double, and that will score the run. And Donovan ends up, for the time being at least, sort of the hero of the day. And Detroit has a 1-run lead, and Cleveland has played poorly, and they're really starting to feel the brunt of it here. The 1908 Indians, or I guess you call them the Naps, right? They weren't known as the Indians at this time. Were actually a really good team in real life, but they certainly have not shown it so far in this replay. I don't know if it's been the rules that they've had or exactly what's going on, but if they lose this game, this is going to look pretty bad. Germany Schaefer up there now, and he rolls a 41 for a 28. That's a ground ball over to Perring. The shortstop throws to first for the out. Donovan moves up to second, and here is Matty McIntyre. He rolls a 63 for a 31. That's a fly ball over to Birmingham in center field, and we go to the bottom of the 7th. It'll be Bill Hinchman here, and he rolls a 34 for a 44. And the little E rolls an 11, and that's going to be changed to an 18. That's going to be an error there on Schaefer, the shortstop. That puts a runner on at first base with nobody out for Cleveland. And here comes Bob Rhodes, who, of course, is going to bunt. Rolls a 36 for a 33, and that's a bunt back to Donovan, the pitcher, who makes the put out at second base, throws over to Schaefer. And that means that Rhodes now is that runner on at first. And here comes Josh Clark. We don't want to bunt with him. He's a good hitter. He rolls a 26 for a 27, and that is going to be a ground ball over to the left side to Coughlin. He makes the play, throws over to Downs, covering at second base for the force out. 2 outs, and here is Napoleon again. He is, 1 for 3 today. He rolls a 32 for a 26. That's a ground ball this time to Downs, who flips over to Schaefer at second. We go to the top of the 8th, and it's going to be Ty Cobb, who is 0 for 3, hitting only 236 this season. He rolls a 55 for an 8, and that's a single to left center, so that makes him 1 for 4 today. That'll bring up Schmidt. Boss Schmidt rolls a 12 for a 25, and that's a ground ball over to Napoleon, flips over to Perring for 1, on to first for the double play. 2 outs now for Sam Crawford. Crawford rolls a 44 for a 7. There's a base hit to right field, and that'll bring up now Claude Rossman. Rossman up there, and his roll is a 33 for a 0. And the next roll for Rossman is a 36 for a 6. That's a double that will score the run. 3-1 now Tigers. And here comes Bill Coughlin. 3-1 here, 2 outs, and Coughlin rolls an 11 for a 7, gets a base hit and scores another run. 4-1 Detroit, and that'll bring up Red Downs. Downs rolls a 23 for a 32. It's going to be a fly ball over to Birmingham in center field for the out. We go to the bottom of the 8th, and it's George Stovall. Stovall rolls a 16 for a 26. It's a ground ball over to second base. Downs has it, throws to first for the out, 1 away. Clark up there again rolls a 42 for a 28. That's changed to a 23. That's going to be a error on the catcher Schmidt, and Clark will reach first base, but it may be a little too late. Up there next, Bill Bradley rolls a 22 for an 8. That's a single to left center field, and so there are 2 runners on, first and second now for the Cleveland Naps. Only 1 out, and it's George Perring, who rolls a 25 for a 9. That's a ground ball over to Coughlin. The third baseman throws to first for the out, and there are 2 away, and here is Joe Birmingham. And Birmingham rolls a 66 for a 0, and then a 36 for a 6, and that'll score 2 and make this one into a close game again. So Joe Birmingham comes up with a big hit here in the bottom of the 8th inning to turn this game into a game again. And the Cleveland Naps are within a run, and that will bring up who next? It'll be Bill Hinchman, but with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 8th. Hinchman rolls a 21 for a 30. That's a fly ball over to McIntyre in left field for the out. We go to the top of the 9th. It'll be Wild Bill Donovan to lead this off for the Tigers, and Wild Bill rolls a 33 for an 8. That's a single to left center field. He's 3 for 4 today. How about that? Now here comes Germany Schaefer, who's had kind of a hard time of it. Donovan does not have any first column 11, so we are not going to take that risk. And he rolls a 32 for a 26. That's a ground ball over to Napoleon, who flips over to Perring for the force out at second. They only get 1, and Germany Schaefer replaces him at first. Schaefer does have a couple of 11s, so we will let him run. And the roll is a 23 for a 32. It's a fly ball over to right field for the second out. And here's Ty Cobb, 1 for 4 today. And let's see what he can do. He rolls a 65 for a 35, and that's a foul out to the catcher Clark. And so we go to the bottom of the 9th inning, and it's going to be Bob Rhodes. Rhodes rolls a 65 for a 35. And the second roll is a 52 for the little E. That's going to be a foul out over to the third baseman Coughlin for the first out. Josh Clark up there now. He rolls a 61 for a 40 and is changed to a 39. It'll be a strike. Next is a 45 for a 14, and so that will be a walk. That puts the potential tying run on first base here for Napoleon, who is 1 for 4 today. And we'll see if he can get a hit or not. So we know that Cobb is going to wind up 1 for 5 in this one. We'll see what happens. Napoleon Lajoie comes up there, hitting only 232 this season. Somewhat disappointing, but I mean, we're only, this is game 13, so we have a ways to go. His roll is a 43 for a 29, and that was the wrong thing to do. Let's see if I can get this back. Here we go, 43 for a 29. That is a comebacker over to Donovan, who takes the play at first base, and so Napoleon unable to get this one done. And there we go. Now we have the setup right. And that means that with 2 outs, it'll be all up to George Stovall. 2 outs here, and George Stovall is going to be the batter here in the bottom of the 9th inning, down by a run. And this is a much more exciting game now than it was before. I thought that the Tigers were going to walk all over them, and instead it's up to Stovall. And his roll is a 22 for a 7, and that's going to be a single that will score the run. That ties this ball game. So how about that? So much for the Cleveland's being all down and out, and we may end up going to extra innings. Stovall gets the big base hit where Napoleon fails in front of him, and that means that up now is Clark with a runner on at first base, 4-4 tie. He rolls a 55 for an 8, and that's going to be a single that will send the runner over to third base, and that means that there will be runners on first and third now. And as you can see here from the some of the pauses that we're having some technical difficulties here with. Let's see here. There we go. We're having some technical difficulties here again with our NP3 program and with this virtual environment for Windows. Bill Bradley comes up now. I'm going to stick with Donovan. Bradley rolls a 54 for a 45, but here is the little E roll. It's a 42 out of the range, and that will do it. And we go to the top of the 10th inning. So, fortunately, I will say for Detroit, they were not forced to go into their bullpen to get out of that inning, and we'll see if that has any long-term implications or not. This game goes here into extra innings, and so we'll see what happens here as we move into the 10th. It's going to be Boss Schmidt up here for the Tigers to lead this off. Bob Rhodes still out there. Schmidt rolls a 55 for an 8, and that's a single to left center field, and that will make Rhodes into a D. And we'll see what happens from here. I think we want to keep Rhodes in. He may come up in the next inning, so we'll see what we can do. But for the time being, there is a runner on base, and I'm having some... there we go. Okay, we're going to have to do this again. Apologies. This is what happens. If you've been watching this for a while, you know that this is what happens when I try to take screenshots at the same time that I'm playing this game. I run into all sorts of weird problems with the... yeah, we can forget about this anyway. I run into all sorts of weird problems here with the operating system and all this other stuff. Probably be better if I were taking screenshots in Windows, but I don't like any of the screenshot tools, so we kind of deal with what we have. Sam Crawford up there with Schmidt on at first, and yeah, Schmidt's not going to run anywhere, that's for sure. Crawford rolls a 16 for a 26, and that will mean he will replace Schmidt at first base. And there's one out now for Claude Rossman. Rossman rolls at 45 for a 14, and that's potentially big, and that's definitely one that we actually do want to get a screenshot off, and I think that we've got that here. So let's see if we can get this to work right. There we go, and we move that one on over into our folder. So there are runners on at first and second now with only one out here for Bill Coughlin. And the question is, again, do you bunt with Coughlin and leave it up to Downs, or do you swing away with Coughlin? He is 2 for 3 today. I think that we'll swing away with him, but I'm not sure if that is the optimal move or not. And the roll is a 56 for a 34. There is a little E number. It's a 21, so it falls within the range. That's going to change it to 19. That will be an error. That is the second error here on the naps in this game. Charge that error to the third baseman, Bradley, and that loads the bases here with only one out here in the bottom of the or top of the 10th inning. And Coughlin, I'm trying to make sure I get his name right. I did. Coughlin with the not exactly the big play. It was kind of a ground ball there to third base, and that ate up the third baseman, and that brings up Downs 1 for 3 today. And the question is, do you bunt, try to score Crawford, or what do you do? So the infield comes in. I think we are going to bunt. Well, let's see what happens. This is where you take the big risk. I know that bunting is not the most optimal thing, but as you can see in 1908, it comes in handy. The roll is a 62 for a 12, which is probably not what you want. There is a little E, and the roll for that is a 26, and that ends up being a bunt back to Bradley, the third baseman, who goes to home for 1, and they go to first for the double play. And so the plan backfires. Downs bunts into a double play, and we will go to the bottom of the 10th inning. And so Cleveland is able to keep Rhodes in that game, in the game without any sort of major damage done. We go down to the bottom of the 10th, and this has become a really exciting one all of a sudden. Pairing in there will face Donovan, whose spot is up next for the Tigers in the top of the 11th. Rolls a 56 for a 34. The little E roll is a 13, which is within the range. That's going to change to an 18. That will end up being a shortstop, a ground ball rather to Schaefer, the shortstop, that eats him up. Both teams are Tigers now with 3 errors, 2 errors on Cleveland. And so the there's a little bit of a turn of the screws here as we continue along, and it's going to be Joe Birmingham now with a runner on first base. Pairing is slow, and he also doesn't have that 11. You always have to check because there's always a difference. Birmingham 1 for 4, so we're going to bunt with him. And his rolls are 31 for a 40, and that's a good bunt. That's a bunt over to the right side. First baseman Rossman grabs that one, flips over to Downs, who's covering at the bag for the out, and that moves the runner up to second. So that means that here with one out in the bottom of the 10th, there's 2 chances now for Cleveland to push that one in. And we'll see what happens. I have this feeling that Cleveland may have been involved in a number of close games so far this season, but I can't remember. We'll have to check up on that. One out here, Bill Hinchman's going to actually swing away, even though he's 0 for 4 today. And he rolls a 53 for a 17. That's changed to 22. That is a bad pickoff move there by Donovan. That will move the runner over to third base, and there's still only one out. And that's a really, really risky decision there by Donovan. I'm not quite sure what prompted that one. And so the question comes back again, and it is, well, do you walk him and try for a double play? I think that's probably what we have to do, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. And we have the rule come in. We do issue him the intentional walk. The walk has come through, and that will bring up the pitcher, Bob Rhodes. And so that roll would have been a 25 for a 9, which would have been a base hit to end this game. So Hinchman winds up as the runner on at first. Bob Rhodes, the pitcher, comes up. They are going to, the Cleveland team rather, is going to pinch hit for him. And let's see what we can find here. Terry Turner is going to be the pinch hitter. Turner comes up there. He is hitting 200 this season. And infield, of course, is going to be in. Question is, do you want to try a hit and run or not with Hinchman? Probably not. So we're going to play this one straight. Turner's roll is a 23 for a 32. That is a fly ball over to right field, and Cobb has it for the out, and that is not deep enough to score the run. And so small ball, it remains here in 1908. Turner's fly ball to right field is just not quite deep enough to get it done. And the tension is tightened just a little bit. There's now 2 outs here for Josh Clark. Clark comes up there hitting 2 for 4 today. And he rolls a 45 for a 14. And Donovan has given up his 4th walk of this game against 1 strikeout. And just is not pitching as well as he should be. I think we've said that a couple of times here in recent games, actually. And with Clark on, that will load the bases here for, you guessed it, for the big man. Lajoie comes up with the bases jammed, and he rolls a 31 for an 8. That's going to win the ball game. It's a single, and it's going to be a walk-off for him, and that will end this one. And so the Naps are able to finally win this game. They will go to 5 and 8. Tigers will go to 6 and 7. And that's a pretty exciting victory, I would say, there for the Naps. And there you have it. As Lajoie gets his 2nd base hit of the game, and he ends up as 2 for 6. 11 hits there for both teams. The Tigers ended up with 4 errors, and that's what really cost them. And look at all those runners left on base for both teams. Man, that's an absolute bloodfest. And anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and we'll have, of course, more where this came from. We'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.